You're listening to Perfectly Normal. This is a podcast where I bring you love, courage, and connection. I'm your host, Michelle Quay. I'm a confidence and leadership coach where I work with negative self-talkers to get them to believe in the talent that they have in reaching their full potential in both personal and professional life. I'm the founder of Elevate Life Coaching. It's a coaching and seminar company. Welcome to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. This week, let's talk about how to stop telling yourself you are not ready. Like, how many of you, I can't see you right now, but how many of you just invisibly raise your hand for me? This is something that I always ask on my social media. I said, raise your hand if you're this and that. So I want you to kind of just mentally raise your hand right now. How many of you have heard yourself saying, well, you know what? I don't think I'm ready yet. Or you don't feel that you are prepared to do something. Maybe it's a presentation, maybe it's jumping onto a new job, or maybe it's starting a new goal, like setting up a new vision for 2021. I don't know what you're processing right now and what you're moving forward in terms of what you want to achieve. But if you find yourself telling yourself, maybe you're not ready. Well, maybe you are not prepared enough. Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should have more content. If you find yourself keep holding yourself back, then this is the episode that you want to hear. You want to stay on. So over the course of the year, I have encountered many coaches or startup business owners who came to me and they are looking to have that self-confidence in building their own business or starting up their business. So they would come to me and they're looking for that self-confidence or that confidence, period. Because initially, we don't know the difference between self-confidence and confidence, because confidence, as I have covered in the past episodes, confidence is really something that you base all your experience and your ideas and thinking based on something that had happened in the past. Whereas self-confidence is entirely generating, coming out from you. And you may not have encountered the same experience in the past, but somehow deep inside of you, there's a sense of knowing. There's a sense of, you know what? I can do this. And for whatever reason, that unknown sense of intuition or that knowing, and in the book of On 10 by Glennon Doyle, she had talked about this knowing. There's a great chapter in that book. If you haven't already done so, I would highly recommend you, pick up that book and just read that book, especially if you're a woman. You feel really empowered. You feel really inspired by that book. So pick up that book. And in that book, she had talked about this sense of knowing. For me, I describe it as this inner self, that higher self that we all have, that inner trust that we all have, that faith that we have. For some, it may be, trusting God, trusting our faith. And that is okay too, because, you may have a different definition for faith, but the fact that you believe in the higher power other than yourself, the self-ego, that demonstrates that you have that recognition, that awareness that's already inside of you. So there's a lot of owners or startup owners who come to me and they're asking for that self-confidence. They're asking for that confidence. And I remember one of the women I spoke to recently, she was in the beginning of her coaching business. So she had actually put out 6 months of content. She had already prepared 6 months of content, ready to go, ready to launch. But yet there was a sense of, you know what? I don't think I'm ready. And so when I engaged her, she was still in a very closed mindset of, you know what, I need more in order to prepare myself to be ready. So my question would be, if you are someone who keep circling around in the idea of, I need to get more in order to be ready, my question for you would be, when do you think you will be ready? And if I ask you that question, chances are you don't have a defined answer, because by the time you get more, when you're standing at that time point, that timeline, you're going to come back and say, maybe I'm not quite ready yet. Maybe I need some more. So we find ourselves keep being in that perpetual cycle of, you know what? I should get more in order to be ready. So what end up happening is you will never be ready, and you will never launch whatever that you are dreaming of. So today's topic is really for those who found themselves come kind of keep going in the circle of trying to get ready, but that by the time you find yourself, well, maybe I need to get some more to be ready. So this is a topic for you. So, in order to approach this, I broke it down into two sections. So, one is we're going to approach it from an external perspective and an internal perspective. Because if you look at all the blocks, all the energy blocks, or all the mental block that we experience in life, it can really be broken down into the external factors and the internal factor. So, what are some of the external factors that can lead us to feeling that we are not ready yet? So, a couple of example of external factor. Maybe you don't have enough resources. So, if you're launching a coaching program, for example, I'm a coach, so I have a coaching program which is I'll just use it something more personal, but you can substitute it. I can leave it blank and you can substitute to whatever that you are doing that you're aiming for in your life. So for example, the one of the external factor would be you don't have enough resources. Maybe it's a financial resource. You don't have enough money to start up a company. Maybe you don't know how to start up a company. You don't know whether or not you need to apply for an LLC or a solopreneur or someone who is in a corporate setting. You don't know if you need to have a license. So those are categorized as your resources, finance resources, information resources. Maybe you need to find someone to watch your kids. That's another external resources that you would need to tap into in order to start out a business, especially if it requires a lot of time. Who's going to watch the kids? And that's a realistic factor that can come into play that, I am not ready yet, right? That would be very legit. I mean, if you can't find childcare, then you can't start up your business and give it full attention. So resources is one of the external factor that can come into play. What are some of the other resources? For example, location. So if you are someone who is looking to have a new position or a new job, maybe looking into the job market, it would require you to locate to a different town, to a different area. And that, relocation is actually a big hassle, which we'll cover in another episode. We'll talk about like what are some of the triggers when it comes to, moving or relocating. So location is another resource, another external factor that can cause us to feel that we are not ready yet. Maybe you don't want to relocate, and relocation is actually really a big hassle. So I remember when I graduated from my graduate school in pharmacy, and I remember my parents started to thinking about moving to the West Coast. So I went to school on the East Coast, and I had all my friends all my life. For the last 15 years that I was moved to this country, I have everything on the East Coast. My friends were there. Every single shop and store that I know of on the East Coast, I drove around in town so many times. After I got my pharmacist license, the retail pharmacy I used to work for, they call me a floater because they sent me to different stores to take care of and watch the store. So I was a floater for many, many years. So I drove around in town, and I'm really familiar with the streets and everything. And when it comes to relocating, it was not my will. It was pretty much, my family decided that we all going to move. And so we decided we all going to move. And so here I am on the West Coast. And initially when I came here, there was a period to readjust. And I was still practicing pharmacy at the time. So this is a different state. I had to take the whole board exam to get my pharmacist license. And that was another struggle that I had to face after I relocated to the West Coast because I couldn't transfer all my credits or my licensing from New York to California. California has another really strict rules in issuing pharmacist license. And so at the time, the first time I took the exam, I remember it was an epic fail. I remember it was so embarrassing that I couldn't tell anybody. And for that whole entire year, I was just living in shame. And talk about shame, right? So all my life I've been shaming myself and all the time. And that epic fail of not being able to pass my pharmacy exam, it was just absolutely the shame to the exponential degree. So that whole year I spent home studying, trying to pass that licensing exam. So the first year I was actually living on my saving. It was a big struggle. It was a lot of self doubt and negative self talk that was coming back, surfacing, and those were the moment where we learn from the experience. But now thinking back, that was a lot of shameful moment. And I remember during that time, I started to learn more about how I was not the person whom I thought I would be. And there was that huge disappointment of, what, where am I on this? And so I went through, starting at that point, I was pretty much on the beginning of my journey to self-development, to that self-discovery of finding out who I am. And that was an epic fail, which I'm really glad I had that epic fail because now I can talk about it. So, relocation is not easy and it can trigger a lot of our negativity and thinking and thought processes that will lead to us feeling we're not ready yet. So, that's another factor. So, we talked about resources, maybe there's no resources. We talked about location. And another, to give you another example of those external factors, would be maybe there's no help. And so I remember when I first started up my business, I was looking for help. I was looking for guidance. I didn't know, coming off from a science major, like all my life, I spent in pharmacy dealing with either patients or physicians or nurses, all healthcare providers. But I had no zero experience to deal with networking, business. How do I connect with people? How do I generate revenue? What does it when people talk about ROI, what does that mean? The return of investment. What is that? So I had no idea of how to run a business. Do I even need a license? Right. So all that said, those are the very common, it made me feel really alone. So those are the very common external factors that can lead you to feel that you are not ready yet. So resources, limited resources, maybe you feel very alone. There's no one who can help you or go to. And then the last one would be relocating or location. And those can be, leading to that feeling of, I'm not ready yet. So those are the external factors. What are some of the internal factors that can influence you and creating that mindset of, I am not ready yet? Four things. There's major four. I call them the energy blocks because we're all energy entity, and this is something that I had covered in a lot of episodes in the past. Where the energy is really how you show up every day. Now you can feel motivated, you can feel inspired, but they are those days where you start simply unmotivated, uninspired, and you don't feel like doing shit. And that's okay too. But understanding why you're feeling this way, what is it that you're feeling, you have more and greater chance of moving forward and be self motivated. So, what are those four major internal block or internal energy blocks or factors that can cause you to lead you into believing that you are not ready yet? So the first one, a lot of coaches will talk about this, it's the limiting beliefs. So a lot of mindset coaches will focus on the limiting belief, right? So what are some of the limiting beliefs that lead you to feeling that you are not ready yet? Maybe you believe that, all coaches, for example, or all business owner should have certain dollar amount in their bank for a safety cushion. Maybe that's a limiting belief for you. Or maybe I remember I recently spoke to a client about this because that there was one thing that was holding her back, and that was she had that limiting belief that all business needs to have a license, which is not entirely true. For some business, yes, you do need to have a license for business. But for others, if you're doing crafting or, home care good or anything that's home produce, like maybe paper products, then if you're going to sell it on Etsy, you don't need a license. So that was a limiting belief for my client who that was the only reason that was holding her back. So that was her limiting belief. And once we addressed that limiting belief, she's rocking rock and roll on this. And yesterday she posted her first post on her Facebook. I was so proud. I had goosebumps about it. And this is so limiting belief is one of the example of that internal limitation or self-limiting belief that it keeps holding you back and you feel that you are not ready yet. Other internal factors would include something like an assumption, assuming that all coaches should have a niche, and this came out of another conversation yesterday I had with a prospect, and we were talking about having a niche for the coach. And you look around, all the coaches, they have their own particular tagline of what is it and who they are helping. So like for me, it's negative self-talker, right? So I work with negative self-talker to get them to believe their talents and their strength so that they can be powerful, they can be fearless. And so you look around, a lot of coaches will pick a specific area that they want to focus on. And therefore, it leads to a lot of new startup coaches believe that they need to have a niche in order to succeed. And so when they don't have a niche, or they don't have a specific targeted audience, they don't feel that they are ready to launch. They don't feel that they are ready to have a business. So that's an assumption that in order to be a good coach, I should have a niche. And if I don't have one, I'm assuming that all coaches would have one. So that's an assumption, because something had happened in the past and therefore you believe it and this is how it should be. Now, you can be creative. How about you come up with your own idea and you don't really have a specific niche, but you're able to talk about it. You can still do a lot of sales and do a lot of marketing on that. And by the way, I'm the marketing queen. So if you want to, come and make a call and schedule a time with me, I'm happy to share my resources with you. So that's assumption. Another possible internal factor that can lead you to believe that you are not ready would be your interpretation. So you look around and you are ready to launch, but you are interpreting yourself as, I sucked at doing this. Or you just have that belief that I'm 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 not good enough. And I'm interpreting all these things that I'm doing as this is just standard stuff. And you're interpreting as based on your own experience, you're based it on other people's experience. You look around and you're just interpreting that, that person is so well off. And how can I ever compare to that person's product? Or how can I ever compare to what my content is to that person? So you do that comparison by interpretation. And when you do that, then your interpretation can be sometimes wrong, right? So who says that, who's comparing who and whose standard is it to judge the product or the outcome that you're putting out? So it's your own interpretation, how you're interpreting the situation, and therefore it's leading you believing that you are not ready yet. So the last one, which is the biggest one, and this is where I do most of the heavy lifting for all my clients when they come to me, is the really heavy stuff that we all carry, which is the negative self-talk or the inner critics or just the critics that we all live with every single day. And sometimes I like to call it the gremlin, or sometimes I call it the judgy juggerson. So this judgy juggerson inside of us will judge on every single thing that we do, right? So you're gonna launch that program. How dare you thinking that you can launch it? You don't have what it takes. Look at you. Who do you think you are, right? So that Judgy Jefferson has said a lot of really critical things about how we are performing. And when the Judgy Jefferson start to speak up, we tend to believe whatever the Judgy Jefferson is saying. So that is the most heaviest stuff that I do, particularly for clients when they come to me and say, I keep going into the circle of feeling that I am not good enough. And when you really look at, all these negative self-talk, a lot of our negative self-talk come from a past experience. And a lot of these gremlin actually began when it was happening in early adulthood or sometime even going back to childhood. Some of those memories that we had, maybe it's not pleasant, it had lead us to believe that this is who we are and this is how we always going to operate, and there is no end to this, which is not true, because even if you are experiencing that negative self-talk, there are ways that you can not only just become functional, you can actually exceed and become the master at your own way of living. So I'll go into more detail in another time. But so today, I give you two different aspects of how to stop telling yourself that you are not ready. So you can approach it from the external aspects, looking at what are some of the things that's happening externally that's leading you to believe that you are not ready. Or you can approach it from the internal aspects, which is, the four major roadblocks or the energy blocks that we all may experience throughout our lifetime. So the first one would be the limited belief, which a lot of mindset coach will cover. Assumption, things that were assumed had happened before and therefore it's going to happen again. And interpretation would be something that you interpret the situation and this is how it's going to be. So, and then the last one is the heavy inner critics, the critiques that we all have, or the self-judgy judgerson that we experience. So the belief around the fact that you are not ready is really coming from that belief that you need to have everything in place before you can start something. Whether it's a business, whether it's a class that you've been wanting to sign up to, whether it's a program that you've been wanting to go to, a lot of that belief come from, I need to have everything together. I need to have all the ideas together. And this is something actually very interesting. One of my prospects had brought to me. We sat down on a one-on-one one day, and it was a complimentary session. She had approached me to wanted to look for a coach. So we sat down, we start talking, and at the end, I could hear that she still has a lot of that internal fear that she was not ready to let go. She was not willing to let go. And I kept hearing that she needs to put everything together. Oh, I don't have all the ideas together. I don't have the visions together. I don't have the money together. So there's a lot of, she was waiting for something to happen and so that she can take the next step. So the reality is that you will never be ready and to have everything in place so that you can launch, because we're always going to constantly feel that there's something missing. Because if you're coming to me at that point where you notice that you are aware of something is not right, chances are whatever that you were doing before is not happening for you. So, if you still allow yourself to be in that space of waiting for something else to happen, then I don't believe that you are ready yet. So, you have to have that gut. You have to have that courage of stepping out of your comfort zone. And you know what? You're going to come to me and you're going to tell me, I am ready to change. If you can tell me that, I can get you moving. That's how confident I am. If you were to tell me right now that, you know what, I may not have everything together, but I am ready to change. then I can get you going. So that's one of the belief that a lot of people would have, that I need to have all the answers already in order to start something. And so if I don't, then I am not ready. Well, if you had the answers already, you wouldn't be here sitting here and having a conversation with me, right? It's just logical and it makes sense. So that's one of the belief. The other belief is that some including myself, I'm a perfectionism. I believe in perfection. And when it comes to being perfect, there's a tendency that perfectionists will overanalyze the outcome and wanted to make sure that the outcome is what they are going to expect and is going to be something that they had thought about and dreamed about. And in order to have that outcome, they need to analyze it and analyze it and analyze it. So what end up happening is a lot of perfectionists will overanalyze the things or the situation. And so as a consequence, they never are ready to launch. They're never ready to take the next step because they're still analyzing that process. Now, the trick here is, yes, you want to acknowledge that you want it to be perfect and you do all your best. You are being your best to be perfect, and you have done all the things that you could possibly think of. And the next step would be just close your eyes and take a leap. And that requires you to have courage, to have bravery, which is one of my values, right? So if you visit my website, you will know that there's three values in the way that I coach, in the way that I live my life. It's through authenticity, bravery, and connection. So bravery is really what can get you going. So you have spent 6 months worth of time put together a program. Now it's your time to be brave. You were true to yourself. Now it's time to take a leap of faith and just jump. Close your eye, because the only way that you're going to see any outcome is by doing it. So for those of you, including myself, in the past, I want to be perfect. I always strive for being perfect. And when I do that, I stop myself and just keep thinking, okay, so what is my next step? How do I tie the loop? How do I tie the loose end? And how do I make this work? And so I spend a lot of time thinking, but I don't spend a lot of time doing it. So over the past 2 years and 3 years, I've been noticing myself just, you know what? I have an idea. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do it. I don't spend a lot of time dwelling on it. I learn as I go. And when I do that, the things that comes out of it, for example, recently I launched a book club, which was came out of nowhere one morning, and I was just thinking to myself, you know what, I really need to read some more books, and what would be a good way for me to hold myself accountable for reading books. Book club. All right, so I thought about book club, and the next step would be maybe I can start my own book club. So I decided to go online to go meet up, and I put up a page, and then I said, you know what, we're going to get together every month. And this is the last day of the month that we're going to meet, and we're going to read a book together. And this is going to be very discussional. And since I am a coach, I'm going to help you to really hold you accountable for maybe carry out one or two actions from the book that we learn. So I decided to do that. And that just was a spur moment idea that I just woke up one day to do. I no longer look for perfection because I don't believe in perfect is there's such a thing. No one is perfect, and I don't need to be perfect. I am perfect just the way I am. So I stopped analyzing a lot of things, and I think the life experience is so much more enjoyable if we can just close our eye and just take a leap of faith. Now, the other belief that someone may experience when you feel that you are not ready or not quite ready yet would be something that maybe a lot of us will experience is the belief that you don't have enough confidence. You don't believe in yourself, and therefore you're not sure who you are and what you really, really have or what you really got. And therefore, You don't believe that you're ready. So this happens in a lot of job searches, right? So when we look for a new position or a new job, sometimes it is completely out of our comfort zone. Maybe we never worked in a company before, and suddenly we're looking for a position anywhere that would that would accept us. And when we do that, sometimes it's a lot of pressure on our self-esteem and self-confidence, and therefore if we don't have that clear idea of who we truly are, we might feel really defeated and being, in that space of, I don't believe I'm ready yet. Maybe I need to get more certification. Maybe I need to have more skills, which goes out to the external factors, right? So when we look at the resources, maybe that confidence comes from the fact that you need to get more certification in the skills that you need, or maybe to acquire more soft skills or hard skills that you need for that particular position that you are applying. And that can contribute to the overall self confidence. So, those are the three major beliefs that would show up if you are someone who keep telling yourself that you are not ready. So the first one would be, you need to have everything in place before you can launch, or you could be a perfectionist and you overanalyze a lot of things. When the third would be not enough confidence. So not enough confidence to actually close your eyes and take a leap of faith. So, what are the three? I'm going to give you three walkaway tips for today. Okay. So, what are the three walkaway tips that I can give you today? Number one is to understand that you always have a choice. Now, this is not news, right? So we always have a choice. Any given moment, you have the ability, you have the superpower to choose. You can choose to continue to believe in yourself for not being ready, or you can choose to, just take that little first step and see what happens. And if you start doing that, you are start actually cultivating that growing mindset where, I may not be ready right now, but who is, right? The more that we start doing something, the better we are prepare ourselves and more ready we are by doing it. And if you keep allowing yourself to stay put, to stand still, then you would never cultivate that growth mindset. You would just keep going around in your mind and wishing that you had take a first step. So instead of, and there's a perfect phrase that just came up for me. You got to get out of your head. So stop thinking about it and just go do it because you are ready. And the second tip that I want you to walk away is to change your perception or your mindset in facing the obstacles and challenges. So, we encounter obstacles and challenges all the time throughout our learning process. Any learning journey that we embark, there's always going to have obstacles. We're always going to encounter new things that we may have never seen before. But how did you know how to walk? You had to fail first, right? You had to fall in order to know that, oh, ouch, that hurt. And then you start to learn how to walk and walk better. So it has to do a lot with how do you change your perception? How do you change your mindset every time you face your challenge? So change your relationship to the challenge that you have. And when you can do that, then you will cultivate that sense of confidence within you that, no matter what obstacles is in front of me, I believe that I can overcome it anytime, any way I want. So that's the second tip. Change your perception or mindset in facing your challenges. The third tip for you is to remember, in order to cultivate that growth mindset, this is a belief that I want you to walk away, maybe carving into the stone. Strive for progress, not perfection. And I think we live in a society where the failure is really frowned upon. And we all strive for survival. We all strive for competition. We all strive for perfection. But in reality, when you do that, you're bound to fail. You're bound to fall. You're bound to have not getting what you want. But if you strive for failure, if you strive for progress, if that those are the elements that's going to lead you to success. So the other day, I had a conversation with another podcast host. We're collaborating together, and the conversation evolves around when you get up in the morning, instead of looking for success, I want you to start looking for failure. And when you do that, look at the ways that you can fail. It makes you become more fearless. It makes you become more confident because you know that there's only one worst thing that you can ever possibly experience, and that would be failure. What's the worst that can happen? Just failure. Okay, so let me look for more ways to fail because through failure, it is the only way that we can learn. It is the only way that we can grow. You look around everyone who is successful in our lifetime or in the past, in history, in the whole entire history of mankind. There's not a single person who have success or succeeded that had not experienced failure in the past. Everybody have failed at some point in their life in order to become the person they want to be. So it's not about becoming, it's about unbecoming all the beliefs, that the limiting belief, all the assumption, all the interpretation, all that judgy juggerson that you've been carrying within you. It is about unbecoming all those so that you can actually step into your true power and do what you need to do, and you will always be ready. So, that, my friend, is this week's episode on how to stop telling yourself you are not ready, because I truly believe that you are ready. And the only thing that is standing behind between you and your success is that yourself. You just got to get out of your way. And today, I hopefully this episode had provided you with some insight on the looking at your external factors, looking at your internal factor, and how they might hindering your ability to choose what your options are here to tackle, start to change, and to start get ready. And hopefully this is something that you can start using and practice in your everyday life, and so that you are always ready. All right. So if you'd like to continue this conversation, I want to invite you to my Facebook group, my Facebook community. Right now, there's a lot of empowering people, leaders from all walks of life currently in the group. It's called the Confidence Lab with Michelle Quay. If you go to my website, it's under the community, and you can check out my other community, the book club and the meditation circle. You're welcome to pop into any one of those that you enjoy and would like to connect with more like-minded people. And hopefully this is an episode that you enjoy listening. And if you do, I would really appreciate if you can give me a like or a review on my podcast. You can go over to Apple iTunes to give me a review, or you can pass this episode on to share with your friends and family so that they can start getting out of their way and get ready for 2021. And I will see everyone next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. In order for this conversation to continue, I would like to invite you to join my private Facebook group, the Confidence Lab for Remarkably Courageous People. This is where we can continue this conversation to bring more love, courage, and connection in helping each other and supporting each other in moving forward in our lives. If you found value in this show, I would appreciate if you can give me a rating on iTunes or Spotify, or simply share this show with a friend who may benefit from hearing it. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. If you'd like to learn more about what I do as a coach, please visit my website at elevatelifecoaching.org or shoot me an email. See you on the next show.